Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're going into game number 3 of our day 2 coverage of the Casting Colosseum. We just saw Speed Limit being taken down by one of our competitors. So the first loss for our Gladiators, and we're going to be seeing Sithos returning back for game number 3. Hopefully he can redeem the Gladiator image as he has his matchup against Hexed Havoc. So let's take a look at Sithos' deck again, or player profile. Sithos is hailing from Arizona. He's 27 years old. He considers his play style to be control. His tournament history, he placed pretty well in tournaments, but he's looking to make his mark in future tournaments. Funny fact about Sithos, he's a PC hardware junkie and is obsessed with technical specs and builds. You can find Sithos at twitch.tv/Sithos and also on the official Hex TCG channel on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. PST. Let's take a look at the deck that Sithos is piloting today. Very familiar deck if you are in the IQ number 12. This Wild Diamond deck. For troops on Sithos' side, he's going to be playing 2 Charge Colossus, 4 Arborean Rootfather, 3 Balthazar, 4 Crocosaur, 4 Angels of Dawn, 4 Eternal Sages, 2 Succulent Cluckodons, 3 Puck Dreambringers, 3 Howling Braves, and that will round out his troop count. Going into actions, he's playing 4 Chlorophilia, 2 Pride's Fall, and 2 Shard Calls. And rounding out his resource pool, he is playing 4 Shards of Life. He is playing Rutherford Banks, who has a starting health pool of 23. He has a double diamond threshold, champion ability, and pay 7. You can put target troop from your crypt into play. Dino, break down this deck for us.
Well, Snake, first I want to say, Sithos might still be trying to make his mark, but he's well on his way with 1 victory under his belt. And taking a look at this deck, it's easy to see why he was able to scoop up some wins earlier. This deck is a very strong option. It was one that was used to pilot a flawless victory in our last IQ, the 12th IQ, originally piloted by Sadalution. And if we break down the actual deck list, we can see why it is so very powerful. It has some of the elements of Cressida, namely Puck the Dreambringer and Howling Brave. Puck, for example, gives you 1 resource for each troop in your hand with 5 cost or greater. Lot of large troops, another similarity with Cressida Ramp, which we just saw 1 match ago. On the other hand, it has some unexpected extra, you might call it tempo gain, in the form of Angels of Dawn. Angels of Dawn is one of the powerhouses from our first set 1. Angel of Dawn is a 4/4 flying that also has Steadfast and the ability with 1 diamond threshold. This is the first draw, it gets to be put into play. So the first draw of any turn, it'll just come immediately into play. You do not need to cast it. That's just a huge powerhouse play for, well, most decks have a difficult time dealing with a turn 2 or turn 3 Angel of Dawn. Finally, another thing that makes this deck stand out, apart from other archetypes you may have seen, is the Charge Colossus and Rutherford Banks combo. Rutherford Banks, as Adam so kindly pointed out, has the ability to put target troop from your crypt into play for 7 charges. So if the game goes long, if you're playing against a deck with a lot of removal, you will be able to return one of your threats. And Charge Colossus is the crowning achievement of that particular combo, because when this troop comes into play, it will gain 8 charges. It will give you 8 charges. And so that is enough to use your ability again, which means if you get a single Charge Colossus outside of voiding or potentially other transformation effects to remove the Charge Colossus, it will keep coming back again and again and again. It cannot be taken off the field.
All right, let's look at our challenger. It is Havoc, hailing from Melbourne, Australia. He is 31 years old. His playstyle, he likes mid-range control. He has 12 years of TCG experience. And his tournament history includes 2 top 8s in the IQ, winner of the 5 Shards Cup of Fate season number 2, and 3rd in the Cup of Fate season 1. And funny fact, Havoc is known for taking his time in matches. Who would have thought that? Let's take a look at the deck that Havoc is piloting today. It's going to be a Blood Sapphire deck. Troops that round out his deck are going to be 4 Vampire Kings, 4 Vampire Princesses, 3 Monsoons, 4 Giant Corpse Flies, and 4 Buccaneers. The rest of his deck consists of 3 Extinctions, 2 Incubation Web. Well, actually, it's 4. I guess that's wrong. We'll get that fixed. 3 Kills, 2 Packs of Pain, 3 Lethal Weapons, 2 Call of the Graves, and 4 Arcane Focuses. He's playing Cranach with his champion starting health of 21. You can pay 4 with the double blood threshold, pay 2 health, and draw a card. Blood Sapphire, pretty strong deck here to face off against Sithos.
This is really interesting, just looking at this deck. I have to say, a bit outside my normal expectation. Normally, when you see Blood Sapphire, you're thinking spiders. Very common archetype, fresh with set 3. And it's one of those decks that's been kind of hovering around, almost winning, but not quite. Metronomy actually used Spider Tech successfully to get into the top 8, not once, but twice. So we know it's a fairly strong deck. Here, we see Havoc using the Sapphire less for Spider Tech and more for things like incubation webs, which can crucially take care of a charged Colossus, as well as some tempo with Buccaneer, which when it comes into play can return a target troop back into a player's hand and give it an additional cost +1. So using tech like Buccaneer and incubation webs combined with just sort of classic board removal, things like extinction, hand destruction in the form of giant corpse fly, will be sort of rounding out the nope that Havoc can bring to the table. One other card I want to point out, which is actually a bit unconventional tech, is Lethal Weapons. It's a 3-cost quick action that allows you to give up to 2 target troops lethal. That means that any damage that is dealt will instantly kill any troop that is damaged. So pretty interesting. Let's see how this shapes up this afternoon.
All right, so we're going to head down to the tournament floor where we have Sithos versus Havoc in game number 3 of this casting Colosseum. So far, we are 1-1 with our gladiators and our challengers. So we'll see if this Sithos can pull out the win to give the gladiators overall victory today. As we go down to the coin toss, we'll see who gets to choose to go first, and we'll take a look at opening hands. Looks like Havoc has won the coin toss and elects to play. We'll take a look at opening hands for both players. Sithos sitting with a Shard of Life, a Diamond Shard, a Wild Shard, Chlorophylla, Double Crocosaur, and Succulent Cluckodon. On the opposite side, for Havoc, he will play a Sapphire Shard, has a Blood Shard in hand, Incubation Webs, Call the Grave, Reese the Crustcrawler, Vampire King, and Giant Corpse Fly.
So it looks like there was a champion substitution. Havoc playing Bertram Craghaven, and that all of a sudden makes Lethal Weapons a bit more of a clear pick when you can create a 1/1 defensive worker bot and then suddenly give it lethal to take care of a threat on the ground. That becomes much more versatile tech than if you had to rely on only troops that you're using from hand.
Absolutely. Wild Shard is played over on Sithos' side, and he will pass the turn back over to Havoc. Draw for Havoc. It's a Blood Shard, so we'll play a Blood Shard, 2 resources, single Sapphire and single Blood threshold, and we'll tunnel.
Yeah, the early Reese, the Crust Crawler, is just a great play. If you can get that out, if it's tunneled and it pops out, it'll create not a random worker bot, but a random robot from any of the Hex sets. And so the potential to just take away the game with card advantage is very high.
Diamond Shard is played for Sithos. We'll play Chlorophylla, is up to 3 resources. Looks like he's going to Shard Call as well. Try to gain a threshold that he thinks he needs for later. It's going to be a Ruby.
Yeah, looks like it is a Ruby. Hoping he's going to get a Diamond later down the line, most likely. Oh, or did he learn from that last game where he was stuck and didn't have his second Diamond?
Looks like he is going to go with the Ruby. Turn passes back over to Havoc. And we'll see his draw. It's a Monsoon.
Yeah, Ruby is still good tech, though, because with a Sage, the Eternal Sage, Ruby will take care of giant corpse flies that happen to make their way onto the board. So I don't think it's a wrong answer. It's just interesting that he's is piloting so in between the lines of his normal deck.
Absolutely. Havoc deciding his lines of play here. He can play the Monsoon. He can play the Giant Corpse Fly.
Monsoon is a safe pick because anything that is played subsequently that dies when the Monsoon pops up, it'll bring anything that has one of those deception counters right back into play.
Arborean Rootfather is the draw for Sithos. Going to play a Ruby now. So Ruby, Diamond, Threshold, Double Wild, 4 resources available. Looks like Succulent Cluckodon's going to join the field for Sithos.
Interesting. So just going right there for immediate pressure. That's 4 damage that could come screaming into Havoc's face next turn.
Draw 4. Havoc is a blood shard. That'll bring him up to 4 resources. And Vampire King is in play for Havoc.
I think the real question is, will he block just because of the Monsoon's ability, and is he afraid of damage? Or will he go for the gamble and potentially try and steal troops from Sithos' hand? Sithos has a deck that's very heavily filled with expensive troops, difficult to play out.
Wild Shard is played for Sithos. We go to attack phase. Succulent Cuckodon is coming across to Havoc. Does Havoc decide to block with the Vampire King? Decides not to. That's going to be 4 damage, bringing Havoc down to 15 health.
I like that line of play. I think, all told, it's highly likely that Sithos has troops, as we know, his hand is mostly comprised of big, fat guys that, you can't play all of them. Your hand is still going to be stuck. And at this point, Havoc has a 1 in 4 chance to miss and a 3 in 4 chance to hit something tasty.
Crocosaur is the play for Sithos to remove one of the chances that Vampire King will hit it. Turn will pass back over to Havoc, who draws a giant corpse fly. He's going to swing in with the Vampire King. No way to block. So he's going to reveal a card. And if it's a troop, it's going to turn into a vampire. It is a Crocosaur. So the Crocosaur goes back over to Havoc's side, will turn into a vampire. And a giant corpse fly.
Yeah, I think this is actually really interesting because playing the giant corpse fly is almost disincentivized in some respects, since Sithos having a bunch of troops in hand, you can't play all of them, and so whatever he doesn't play will be stolen by the Vampire King next turn.
Turn passes back to Sithos. He draws a Shard of Life. Going to play a Crocosaur, so he's going to battle 2 troops on the opposing side. Vampire King 1, Vampire the other, removing that life gain ability.
That's a solid line. Getting rid of that Vampire King prevents any future blood-sucking shenanigans. That will, as far as Sithos is concerned, leave him free to play the Arborean Rootfather maybe next turn if he draws into a shard.
Shard of Life is played for a diamond threshold. Turn will pass back over to Havoc. Oh, combat phase. We're going to be swinging in for 9. You
have to wonder if the block here is worth it or if he should wait for a giant corpse fly. It looks like he is going to block after all.
So damage is dealt. Havoc is down to 19. And now we pass the turn back over to Havoc. His draw. That Reese will come up too. Reese will come up from tunneling. Draw for Havoc. Lethal weapons.
Now this is interesting because now the Reese also has a deception counter and can come back if Sithos finds some way to kill it.
Giant corpse fly is going to remove that Arborean Rootfather from Sithos' hand. He doesn't have any resources to cycle it, so unfortunately it's going to go to the crypt.
Well, I think this whole chain of events really shows the power of the Monsoon. If it's not dealt with, if there aren't counters or some other way you can sort of go over it, it just really punishes normal troop interactions like blocking and attacking. It's very difficult.
Draw for Sithos is a diamond shard, which puts him at the necessary champion charge power to use that ability from Rutherford Banks. He is going to select the Arborean Rootfather. It will come into play. He's up to 32 health.
Spell Shield. And this, I think this is a great opportunity to show how the meta has changed now that people are aware of the Rutherford Banks and the whole, Arborean Rootfather with Spell Shield shenanigans. Lethal Weapons is such a great card for Havoc to have in hand. He'll be able to take care of the Rootfather in a way that, you wouldn't normally see.
Absolutely. So we've got 14 damage inbound to Havoc. He's going to have to choose his blocks. He did get an axe spot from the Reese at the end of his turn last turn. Havoc trying to decide his blocks.
He's going to need something up, but I mean, they should all come back when the monsoon
surfaces next
returns. Turn. Yeah, so in some way he can sacrifice his entire board if he wants to.
So he looks like he's going to double block one of the Crocosaurs, and Axbot is going to jump in front of a Crocosaur. Havoc at 15, Sithos at 32 health. Axbot is going to power up the Electroid.
Only troop remaining. He doesn't have a lot of choice.
He does. Turn passes back. Here comes Monsoon, which means everything with a deception counter is also going to come back into play. And that's a pretty healthy board state for Havoc.
Oh, man.
Giant Corpse Fly doesn't matter because no cards in hand for Sithos.
It's just so much flying pain, and then that lethal weapons holding back can get rid of the Root Father, which is, I think, the scariest troop on Sithos' side.
Cards remaining in Havoc's hand: lethal weapons, incubation webs, and Call the Grave.
It should be said, though, that the lethal weapons is one of those one-trick ponies. It's done. So once the Arborean Root Father dies, if Sithos is lucky and draws into a couple more Arborean Root Fathers in quick succession, he could potentially turn this game back in his favor. He does have 32 health. It's a very respectable health total. And with every attack of the Arborean Root Father, that's going to be another 8 health.
Draw for Sithos is a Pride's Fall, which will allow to destroy target troop with 4 defense or more. So definitely some good targets on the opposite side for Havoc for Pride's Fall.
Yeah, I mean, the Reese is, I would say, probably target number 1, just because the longer it stays on the board, the more free cards he's going to get. Just a robot a turn is so hard to deal with. And there's some scary robots that could potentially be spawned. On the other hand, Vampire King basically ensures that if Sithos ever draws a charged Colossus, he will lose it. He still only has 7 resources. He needs 8 to play the charged Colossus from hand.
So Root Father swinging in for 8. Havoc trying to decide how he wants to use his blocks. He does have the ability to use lethal weapons. I don't know. What do you think? What would you block with here?
It's a difficult decision. Whatever he's blocking could just be a throwaway. Having flying, having evasion is very helpful when your opponent has blockers on the ground and you don't want to sacrifice too much. But he does have a Call the Grave in hand. So, whatever dies, if it's a crucial card, well, Havoc does have the ability to just return it back. It's a solid option.
I mean, yeah, I think either way, Havoc has options to figure out how he's going to handle this. He's going to block with Electroid, Axbot, Giant Corpse Fly. And looks like Sithos is targeting, he's thinking about targeting the Electroid. I don't think that's as big a threat. Does have enough to take out the Root Father.
That's really interesting. So trying to bait out any removal that Sithos might have.
So the Root Father will visit the crypt. Axbot is going to power up a vampire. And it looks like Sithos is going to respond with a Pride's Fall. The Reese, you're probably right, is the bigger threat. And Pride's Fall targeting that Reese.
I mean, it's a solid line of play, making the best of a bad situation. And Monsoon made sure that Havoc had just a overwhelming board position. And I mean, Sithos, he's not out of the game yet. He can come back. Crocosaurs will go a long way towards stabilizing. Plus a couple early Arborean Root Fathers, just get those again. That's another way to keep his health total up.
Sapphire Shard is played for Havoc, and now he's looking to bring back Reese with Call the Grave. It'll go into his hand, and he has the resources to play it, so Reese will come back on the board.
What's makes Heck unique to other games is that buffs and changes are they're zone agnostic. So once Reese gets the buff that any robot that he would generate is a random robot instead of a worker bot, that buff will stay even if it is sent back to Havoc's hand, if it's sent to the crypt, it doesn't matter. It's a reoccurring threat, and it's going to stay that way.
9 damage swinging into Sithos, brings him down to 23. His draw is a Howling Brave. That's not what he's looking for. So life totals are almost equal here, but the board state on Havoc's side is very, very daunting.
I think stabilizing will require a couple of Crocosaurs on Sithos' side. I mean, it can still be done, but it needs to happen soon.
So a Shard of Cunning is played. Blood or Sapphire threshold can be selected. Chooses Sapphire, now at 3 Sapphire threshold, 4 blood, 6 open resources. Looks like Incubation Wedge, which is going to target the Crocosaur. And we're going to go into attack phase from Havoc.
Likely just pressing the advantage. I mean, he has such an impressive board state, and every draw that Sithos gets is 1 extra chance to stabilize. I don't think Havoc wants that to happen at all.
So everything but the Reese is coming at Sithos. This is a ton of damage and blocking here. He's going to remove most of Sithos's board. So definitely going to have to calculate the amount of troops he's going to have remaining, what he can take out. And it's still a ton of damage coming at Sithos directly.
It forces the block. I mean, that's lethal if he doesn't respond. So, you know, again, best of a bad situation. I think a Crocosaur could eat 2 troops in the air, and you can see Sithos sort of pointing to the 2 he might very well want to get rid of, that Giant Corpse Fly and the Vampire King. Did you see that spawn?
Jankbot is spawned on opposite side for a Havoc. Angel of Dawn is the top deck for Sithos, so it will come into play. But unfortunately, that is a Jankbot, guys, on the opposite side for Havoc, and that is insult to injury, I would say.
Yeah, if you don't know what a Jankbot does, normally you can only play it in decks that are over 150 cards in constructed. So it has a very strong deck building restriction, one of Hex's sort of unique qualities. But when it attacks, not only is it a 5/6 for 4, but when it attacks, it'll play 3 random cards from your deck for free.
So a kill, a Sapphire Shard, and a Call to the Grave will resolve. So yeah, this is all but over for Sithos. And again, insult to injury with that Jankbot. And now Call of the Grave will allow him to take a troop from his crypt and put it back into his hand, and kill will remove a threat.
The only blocker left on the board. I mean, this is the GG, but I have to say, as this closes out here for Sithos, I love Jankbot. It's just got such a warm spot in my heart.
So that is it. Havoc takes game 1 here against Sithos in Casting Colosseum. Game number 3. Let's take a look at Sithos's reserves, playing a Cerebral Domination, 2 Pride's Fall, 3 Carnosaurus, 2 Turbulences, 2 Scorn of Oberons, and 4 Crash of Beasts. What are some options for Sithos here to come back?
We did see some flyers, many nasty flyers, including the Corpse Flies as well as Vampires. Turbulence is an awesome card whenever you're worried about a deck that has a lot of flyers. Destroy target troop with flight. Boom, done. Another potential option is to run maybe Carnosaurus. I think that's probably kind of risky. I'd be more inclined to use Pride's Fall. As we saw, the real turn in the game was when the Vampire King was uncontested and started stealing troops. It's such a huge swing in card advantage. So Pride's Fall and Turbulence would be my 2 picks of choice.
All right, so let's take a look on the opposite side for Havoc. His reserves, playing 2 Subtle Strikers, 4 Rock Casts, 4 Relentless Corruptions, 3 Counter Magics, and 2 Noxious Glories. Options.
Yeah, you know, this is an interesting deck. I like, if he's afraid of the infinite loop, Subtle Striker is useful. But with with answers like incubation webs, the infinite loop isn't quite as terrifying as it might have been previously. Counter magic is a good option if you're afraid of the Arborean Root Fathers. After all, you do need some way to get them off the board. Lethal weapons is one way in his deck, but if he's afraid of that, well, counter magic is another. And with some of the changes that have been going into the Hex client as they've been continuing to make the Hex client better, you can now counter Angel of Dawn. It was previously uninterruptible. So a counter magic can come down and take care of one of those instant flyers pretty nicely.
All right, so let's go on to game number 2, where Havoc is up a game against Sithos. If he wins here, it'll be a 2-1 victory for our challengers. We'll take a look at opening hands for both players. On Sithos' side, he's sitting at a Diamond, Shard, a Wild Shard, Shard of Savagery, Shard Call, Arborean Rootfather, Crocosaur, and Eternal Sage. Looks like he's going to drop the Diamond and play a Shard Call. On the opposite side, for Havoc, playing with a Blood Shard, Shard of Cunning, Arcane Focus, Reese the Crustcrawler, Giant Corsefly, and a Subtle Striker. So it looks like he mulliganed down to 6. His draw is a Buccaneer.
Yeah, seeing the Subtle Strikers subbed in, I'm actually really excited to see Havoc's deck and how it runs. It just goes to show you how the meta continues to evolve and change. As I've mentioned previously, we've had the Set 3 meta for 6 months now, and it's still changing, even with the rapid spread of information. Hex is an online game. It's amazing.
Arborean Rootfather is the draw for Sithos, and it looks like he's going to pass the turn.
Oh, so it looks like he has changed the gem in those Root Fathers. It has, when it enters play, you gain health instead of going for the life drain.
Wow, so he cycles the Arborean Rootfather, and now Sithos has an Angel of Dawn on his side during Havoc's turn.
Ooh. Because it is the first card drawn, and that is on your opponent's turn or your turn. It doesn't matter which, as long as it's the first.
Draw for Sithos is a Diamond Shard. He's going to swing in with this Angel of Dawn. 4 damage. That's going to bring Havoc down to 15 health.
Yeah, that's right. A turn 2 Angel is just so devastating. At least Havoc does have a potential answer in hand. Buccaneer will be able to return that Angel and slow things down a little bit. But to play that, Havoc will need a 3rd shard.
He draws a 2nd Buccaneer. He's going to use Arcane Focus. Let's see what he picks up. It's a Sapphire Shard. So we'll have the resources next turn to answer the Angel of Dawn.
Yeah, that's a nice play. And now he needs to decide if he's more afraid of charge powers, wants to toss down that Subtle Striker, or if he wants to use Arcane Focus and continue to improve his hand.
Looks like he's going to go with the Arcane Focus. So again, going to be able to look at the top 2 cards of his deck, pick one, put the other back in.
Arcane Focus is just such great tech for anybody who's running Sapphire. I highly recommend it. 1 cost, and you can basically, it's a mini little almost scry ability, and it can make so much difference for your subsequent draws.
Grabs a Monsoon, will pass the turn back over to Sithos. Before the end of Havoc's turn, he's going to cycle that Rootfather. Let's see what he gets. He gets a Balthazar. Start of Sithos' turn, his draws a Wild Shard.
He's getting near to the point where he can play a lot of his threats. I mean, Eternal Sage, Crocosaur, Balthazar, these are all very, very strong. And even if a Buccaneer starts coming down, it'll buy Havoc the time he needs. But he's got to be smart about his plays, because now Sithos can play everything.
After that swing in with the Angel of Dawn, that brings Havoc down to 11 health. And turn passes back over to Havoc, who draws an Incubation Webs. We'll tunnel the Monsoon and pass the turn.
Now, Incubation Webs is solid. You can use that to answer something if he doesn't want to play the Buccaneer bouncing game.
Diamond Shard is played for Sithos. 5 resources, triple Diamond, double Wild. Swinging in with the Angel of Dawn. This will bring Havoc down to 7 health.
what aggression. And it just goes to show you how powerful the Angel of Dawn can be.
Eternal Sage is played for Sithos, and he'll pass the turn back over to Havoc. We'll see his draw. It is a Blood Shard. That'll bring him up to 4 resources. Double Sapphire, double Blood.
So I want to return to a slightly earlier play where he tunneled the Monsoon instead of playing the Buccaneer right away. This just goes to show a whole bunch of forward thinking. Using the Buccaneers now, he takes 4 extra damage, which, we've seen his health total very low. That's a dangerous move. And yet it allows him to get so much more value. He could suspect that Sithos is going to have a lot of blockers to sort of keep up that pressure. And now he gets double duty out of every Buccaneer that dies, because when it comes back, it'll be able to bounce yet another thing.
Start of Sithos' turn is a Diamond Shard. So he has some options with the Eternal Sage, just sitting at 5 open resources.
Just trying to decide whether he wants to force damage through or gain a little bit of health.
Plays a Wild Shard. That'll pump up the Eternal Sage. It is now going to be an 8/8. And that gives a little more value to Balthazar. It's played for all his resources.
Great combo. So Balthazar allows you to draw cards and gain health equal to attack and defense of a troop. And so 8/8 means Sithos is going to gain 8 health and draw 8 cards, and also present lethal.
8 damage coming in to Havoc with only 7 health. Will block with the Buccaneer. And Sithos is going to have some decisions to make too, because he's going to have to discard.
Wow, that is pretty good combo. I mean, Havoc might be nearing the end, but it's not that scary yet. He can still hold on. A Buccaneer will give him some blocking potential, and if he can just hold out for a Monsoon, everything that has died so far will be coming back.
Arborean Rootfather, Charge Colossus, Crocosaur. He's still got to get rid of some cards. Diamond Shard.
One other thing to point out, Sithos is currently at 6 charges. With 1 extra charge, anything that he tossed, he will be able to bring back into play. A charged Colossus is one of those things.
Draw for Havoc is a Buccaneer. Reese is now untunneled. Charge Bot is created. 4 resources available.
Now, that is a little bit rough. He's going to need to get rid of the Eternal Sage now. Crocosaur is a danger that Havoc must be aware of. If nothing else, I believe there's a Crocosaur in Sithos' crypt, so he knows Crocosaur's on the table.
Buccaneer on the Eternal Sage. It looks like Reese is going to swing in for 4, get blocked by the Balthazar. And a spam bot is created from Reese.
So I actually like the block on Sithos' side, because it opens up the potential to bring back the Balthazar again. If he needs extra card advantage, he can essentially replay the Balthazar with the charges.
Crocosaur is the play. Looks like he's going to target the spam bot and the Reese, which will keep his Crocosaur alive, remove the threat of the Reese. We'll play out a resource. And it's a diamond. Now he has a champion ability online. Oh, and here we go. Here comes the combo. Charge Colossus is now online.
Oh, so good. I mean, Havoc does have the Subtle Striker. You can see him sort of gesturing towards it. That's likely going to be a follow-up play.
Puck the Dream Bringer is played, and that'll end Sithos' turn.
And that's also a lot of pressure, because every drop in Sithos' hand is 5 or higher. So that is a lot of extra resources.
Blood Shard is a draw and played for Havoc at 5 resources. Subtle Striker joins the board. That'll prevent Sithos from using his charge power.
So which is more important? Does he use the Buccaneer to help clear off some of the board? Possibly. I would be inclined to get rid of either Puck or the Charge Colossus. We'll see what he chooses.
And it is the Puck. So he's afraid of the cards in Sithos' hand for that extra ramp from Puck. And as we go to attack phase, Havoc will pass the turn and it'll go back over to Sithos. His draws a Shard of Life.
And the problem for Havoc is that Sithos essentially has 2 Crocosaurs he can play, one from hand and one from the crypt. This might very well be GG.
And it looks like he is following that line of play. So the second Crocosaur is coming out. It's going to remove the Charge Bot and the Buccaneer. And we now have lethal inbound to Havoc. No way to respond, no open resources. And it looks like Sithos is going to tie this matchup between him and Havoc 1-1 in our casting Colosseum.
What a game. I mean, all of our games here today have been so close, just going right down to the wire. I am really excited to see if Havoc can clear this up. And nothing against Sithos. I think he has a really strong chance of winning as well. But you know me, I like the upset. I like the unexpected deck that comes out of nowhere and uses awesome, interesting new tech. So we'll see how it goes.
Absolutely. So again, both players are going to be going into reserves and trying to complete their main deck based off what they saw in the previous 2 matches. Remember, the winner of this matchup will walk away with some cool prizes. So both players playing for both pride and prizes. Reserves, we already talked about them a little bit. I don't know if there's really much more reserves that Sithos might want to do.
Pride's Fall could be useful on Sithos' side, just as a guarantee against something like your Reese the Crust Crawler, I think, is the biggest threat that Havoc has shown so far, anyway. Could also try some crazy shenanigans with Crash of Beasts, since Havoc has shown a lot of single target removal. Crash of Beast would be one way to go wide and potentially upset some of the strategy that Havoc has shown so far. We'll see if any of those happen. I think Pride's Fall is most likely.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good point. As we go over to Havoc's side, I mean, Subtle Striker was obviously a key reserve for game number 2, and I'm sure will stay in his main for game number 3. I don't know what else do you think he could consider?
I like Counter Magic. Again, a wacky move would be to go Relentless Corruption. If you can steal enough things, you can very quickly build up card advantage that way.
Sure. All right, so we're going to game number 3. Winner takes all. Havoc will have the opportunity to play first. We'll take a look at opening hands for both players. On Sithos' side, sitting at a single wild resource, double Chlorophilia, Howling Brave, double Crocosaur, and Angel of Dawn. On Havoc's side with double Blood, the Shard of Cunning, Kill, double lethal weapons, and Vampire Princess.
It's actually a really interesting keep on Sithos' side. Single resource and Howling Brave. It just goes to show you the power of Chlorophilia. If you can get to 2, you can get to 3, and then you're good.
Absolutely. So turn passes back to Sithos. We'll play a Wild Shard. Howling Brave will come out. And hopefully Howling Brave will make it through turn 2, and then he should be in good business. And Sithos will just pass a turn back to Havoc, who draws a Subtle Striker. Wow, Subtle Striker is the draw.
Interesting tech. I wonder how effective it is against Sithos, because if you can remove it early, it doesn't have quite as much impact. It's kind of a late game card. I like the tech though. I think it's very clever.
So Havoc will pass the turn back over to Sithos. His draw is a Wild Shard. So now at 2 resources, 3 with Howling Brave. So he's going to play a Chlorophilia. We'll allow him to play a Wild from his deck. He can use the Howling Brave to ramp up even more if he wanted to play the second Chlorophilia.
I actually think that was pretty interesting that he didn't play Chlorophilia number 2. Wonder what he's holding up for. Maybe Turbulence, worried about that early Vampire Princess.
Maybe he is. Third resource is online for Havoc with double Blood and a single Sapphire with 2 Vampire Princesses in hand, as well as a Kill and 2 lethal weapons.
Vampire Princess, again, as part of the vampire family, is one of those premier blood cards. I mean, it defines the blood shard. It is a relatively efficient troop that's all about striking fear into the heart of your opponents. If it gets to swing in and deal damage, it will steal something if it's the right type. Vampire Princess loves actions.
Subtle Striker is swinging in. That'll bring Sithos down to 21 health. Havoc trying to decide if it's safe to bring out a Vampire Princess. He's going to test the waters. Vampire Princess comes online. And looks like Sithos is going to allow it. Draw is a second Turbulence.
Interesting. Might have missed the Turbulence play. Either that or he's playing it really slow, thinks there might be something even more threatening than the Vampire Princess. I mean, after all, he has a lot of expensive troops in hand that need to be dealt with. Plus, a Crocosaur could also eat both of those.
So it looks like Turbulence is the play for Sithos. Going to remove the Vampire Princess from the board. Sithos will pass the turn back over to Havoc.
I think that's what makes games like Hex so incredibly exciting. There are just a myriad of potential lines of play, and the best players are able to choose from those, just a constellation of options, and find their own path to victory.
Blood Shard is drawn from Havoc. We'll go to attack phase. Subtle Striker is going to swing in for 2. That'll bring Sithos down to 19 health.
So will Havoc play that Vampire Princess down? You know, every time you have 2 troops, you are risking a Crocosaur.
Blood Shard is played. Havoc determining if that Vampire Princess is going to be alive. And he does have kill in hand, so to handle a threat on the opposite side. Looks like he's going to use his Bertram Champion ability. We'll put a Worker Bot on the board. It is a 1/1 for 1, and it only has defensive, which means it can attack. Turn passes back over to Sithos, who draws a Balthazar.
I really like that. Playing the Worker Bot is a bait for Crocosaur because he has lethal weapons and can basically make him pay for the Crocosaur nom.
So Crocosaur is played. Looks like Havoc is trying to decide what he's going to use. It looks like it's going to be Kill, so Kill is going to take care of the Crocosaur.
Interesting. Probably to keep the Subtle Striker alive, because, you know, the lethal weapons is a one-trick pony, right? Once it's done, you know, you still lose your board. So that's the more conservative play. I like it.
Draw for Havoc is a Sapphire Shard. We'll play it now at 5 resources, double lethal weapons and Vampire Princess in hand. It's going to swing in again with the Subtle Striker. That'll hit Sithos, bring him down to 17 health.
Yeah, but having used his kill, he's got to be really careful about that second princess. Will he play it down? Bet on the fact that Sithos doesn't have 2 Crocosaurs in hand, or will he play it slow? Risk or reward?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough choice for Havoc here in this situation.
I think this might make or break the game depending on how it goes, because if he loses the Vampire Princess and his Subtle Striker now, there are going to be few chances for him to come back in the future.
Wow, the draw for Sithos is another Crocosaur. So he has 2 Crocosaurs in hand. He's going to go again, play the Crocosaur, going to target the Subtle Striker and the Worker Bot.
And now we get to see lethal weapons in action, huh?
Absolutely. So Havoc will be able to put lethal weapons on his Worker Bot and the Subtle Striker. And those 3 troops will visit the creep. The only troop on the board is the Howling Brave. And turn will pass back over to Havoc. Draw for Havoc is a Shard of Cunning. It's going to play the Vampire Princess.
Unbeknownst to him, however, Turbulence is an answer.
Absolutely. Going to play that Shard of Cunning for a Sapphire Threshold. 2 open resources, a lethal weapon, the only card in his hand. As we pass the turn back over to Sithos, draws a Wild Shard. We'll play it out. Now at 5. No diamond threshold for Sithos, but it doesn't really matter now. Going to use that Turbulence and knock out the Vampire Princess.
That is a rough place to be in. I think Havoc will likely be looking for a Vampire King. or another one of his major threats. I mean, Vampire King right now could be hugely impactful as the only troop Sithos could play is either Balthazar or Crocosaur. The Angel of Dawn still stuck in his hand with no diamond.
Howling Brave will hit Havoc, bring him down to 18. A second Vampire Princess. Oh, maybe not. The next
second.
Vampire Princess, out on the board. Turn passes back over to Sithos, who draws a Pride's Fall.
When you look at that, Vampire Princess just carefully skirting the Pride's Fall. Pride's Fall, for those who are watching at home, is a 2-cost which can destroy a troop that has 4 defense or greater. Vampire Princess has 3, and so is safe.
So Crocosaur is the play for Sithos, desperately needing a diamond threshold and not having it here. It's going to pass the turn back over to Havoc. Life totals are about equal. 18 for Havoc, 17 for Sithos. Draw for Havoc is Arcane Focus.
The Crocosaur play back there was actually really calculated. Balthazar, as we saw last game, will allow him to draw a whole bunch of cards and gain a bunch of health based on the attack and defense of a troop on the board. And that, a 1-1 doesn't do so much. A 5-6, on the other hand, changes games.
Monsoon is picked with Arcane Focus. It will be tunneled. Activation of Bertram will create a worker bot. Havoc going to swing in, so he'll be able to hit for 2, gain 2, and also see one of the 3 cards in Sithos's hand.
It is a 1 in 3 chance he grabs that Pride's Fall. That is some card advantage.
Oh, he does! He gets the Pride's Fall. Wow.
Nice.
Vampire Kiss is, as a result of that, draw for Sithos is a Soul Marble, but can't play it. He is going to activate Howling Brave. That puts him at 6 resources, which allow him to play Balthazar.
On Balthazar's effect, even if Havoc uses the Vampire Kiss to kill the Balthazar, the effect just from coming to play will be on the chain. So I don't think there's any way for Havoc to stop this draw.
So he finally sees a diamond shard for Sithos, double Eternal Sage. Really huge there. And Shard Call. So definitely it's some good options for Sithos as he plays a diamond, finally gets that diamond threshold he's been looking for. And we'll see if he plays or swings in with the Crocosaur.
I think the Shard Calls is very impactful because not only does he have 1 diamond, which was important for the cards in hand, he has 2 diamond now with Shard Call for his charge power, which will be available next turn.
So a swing with the Crocosaur is going to be blocked by the Worker Bot. We're going to see lethal weapons again. So Crocosaur is going to be going to the crypt, courtesy of lethal weapons and that Worker Bot. Shard Call is played from Sithos. Going to choose the threshold. It looks like your resource. He's going to go for Sapphire.
Interesting choice. I think he must be thinking of the Eternal Sages. Sapphire will allow you to lock down Vampire Princess for a couple of turns.
Absolutely. Turn is back over to Havoc. His draw is a Rotcast. Going to swing in with a Princess for 2. That'll bring Sithos down to 19. Havoc up to 22.
Now, unfortunately for Sithos, unfortunately for Havoc, Sithos doesn't have any actions in hand. Soul Marble is crucially a constant and could not be stolen by the Vampire Princess.
Draw for Sithos is a diamond shard, so no worries about grabbing that Sapphire. He did get a diamond, so he's going to play Eternal Sage. And Sapphire is going to be played, which is going to exhaust that troop, that Vampire Princess. And it won't ready during Havoc's next ready step.
Yeah, it's pretty big. And it's better in some ways than trying to kill it because that, there is potentially a monsoon. I mean, Sithos doesn't know that there's a monsoon, but there could be. And anything that dies does have the chance of coming back.
Balthazar is going to get his licks in, going to take Havoc down to 21. Soul Marble the play for Sithos as he passes the turn to Havoc. And Havoc's draw is a Monsoon, sitting with Rotcast and Vampire Kiss in hand.
It's a little bit of an unfortunate pickup on Havoc's side. He probably didn't want a second Monsoon. Monsoon is unique, so you can only ever have one of them either tunneled or in play. If he were to play that Monsoon, his tunneled one would immediately die.
Havoc trying to decide what's his line of play, staring at an Eternal Sage across the board, knowing that Sithos has 4 cards in hand.
Rodcast is one of those cards that I think is kind of a high risk reward for Havoc. He wants it early game when he can kill the Howling Braves and other ramp shenanigans that Sithos brings to the table. Late game, though, it's less useful.
Sithos didn't use the Soul Marble at the end of Havoc's turn, so one charge charge on the Soul Marble that wasn't accounted for. He's going to activate the Howling Brave. That'll bring him to 9.
Yeah, but can't go all the way.
If he would have done that the previous turn.
No, it's only a minor setback since he will be able to play one of his other threats, either Angel of Dawn or Eternal Sage.
So Angel of Dawn joins the battlefield for Sithos. And he's going to swing in with that Balthazar and Eternal Sage at 6 damage. That'll bring Havoc down to 15.
I think Havoc needs some way of regaining card advantage. Card advantage is going to be really important, and more than that, board advantage. I would be sitting there really hoping for an extinction of some kind, maybe blockers that can do multiple exchanges, more lethal, perhaps.
Draw for Havoc is a second rock cast. He's going to swing in with the Vampire Princess. Angel of Dawn's going to block. And he does have an answer with Vampiric Kiss against the Angel of Dawn.
Oh, but it has lethal, so the angel will still die.
Oh, that's true too. Yes, absolutely. Totally forgot about lethal weapons. Something we didn't see, and against Havoc using that creative.
It's such unconventional card tech. I really have to give Havoc props here.
So it looks like a second Eternal Sage may join the field, or he may decide just to power everything up with the Soul Marble. He's going to put 6 counters, so that'll activate.
See if some response happens. Yes, he's going to kill Balthazar.
And looks like he's going to rot cast the Howling Brave, so he's going to take advantage as much as he can to remove any troops that'll get powered up with Soul Armaments. Soul Armaments comes online. Steadfast, Spell Shield, +2/+2.
And that's such a painful thing, because it makes other cards in hand like Rotcast completely dead draws for Havoc.
I like this play from Sithos. Uses his champion ability to grab Balthazar, fill his hand back up, and go back up to 30 life. Now we'll choose between a diamond and a wild threshold with his multi-resource. We'll choose a wild.
Balthazar can't swing in. Looks like he's going to buff Balthazar anyway.
So a bit of a misplay there.
It's still 7 damage coming in, and he can afford to make some misplays.
All right, so 7 damage to Havoc will bring him down to 12. Looks like Sithos going to play Chlorophilia. That'll give him up to 2 resources. And now he can pump up the Eternal Sage now.
Yep.
And
that's tricky, because not all effects will allow you to buff up your own, the troop that is doing the buffing. Eternal Sage is a little bit unique in that respect.
Sithos going to have to discard to go down to 7. Will be a Wild Shard. Monsoon at the start of Havoc's turn will come into play. That means the Worker Bot comes back. Not a lot of value from that Monsoon. Shard of Cunning is the draw.
But I mean, Workerbot does still have lethal. That's something at least.
But on the opposite side for Havoc, or for Sithos, he has a Shard of Savagery. So if he plays it for a Ruby,
it's going to completely kill the Workerbot. Yep.
So we'll see what Havoc's going to do. Shouldn't see an attack from Havoc. He doesn't, and he'll pass the turn. back over to Sithos, draws a shard call, so another way to get that ruby as well. Sithos playing a charge Colossus. And looks like Sithos is going to grab a Crocosaur from the crypt. So another way to battle. That's going to battle the Monsoon and the Worker Bot, removing that threat. And this is interesting.
A lot of ways to skin the cat, or the bunny in this case.
So he's going to activate. That is lethal on board. And we're going to swing in with everything. 17 damage minus the charge Colossus.
That is lethal.
And that is going to do it. Sithos takes down Havoc in game number 3 of the Casting Colosseum. Our Gladiators are 2-1 today. So congratulations to Sithos for taking down his wins. Really great matchups. Good stuff from Havoc. Good tech from Havoc and interesting stuff. What do you think of the matchup?
I have to say, Sithos played it admirably. This is his second victory, and it is well deserved. But a small part of my heart bleeds for Havoc over there. I love seeing the different deck tech, and that was certainly different. A treat to watch, certainly.